Hello there and welcome to Grow a Lot More. So I managed to acquire this loft tank last year for free. I've actually filled it with my own homemade compost. It's got leaf mould in there, that's really good for structure, and some manure. And what I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to plant out one of our courgette plants. This is a zucchini. So what I'm looking to do is just make a hole roughly the same size as its pot, use that as a gauge, work the soil in and around, it's perfect, and then just gently tease that out, and it has a really good root structure. So place that into the hole that you've made and then backfill that in. Now these are quite hungry plants, so if you can give them regular feed, especially when they're flowering, but they really like water. And if you notice, I also make a slight dish. The reason why I do that is because when I water, the water goes directly to the roots of the plant. Now this position here gets about 6 to 7 hours day of sunlight, so that's plenty. The main thing though is definitely to keep it well watered and well fed. They're very hungry plants. Good, so what I'll do is I'll get a label in that and give that a really good water. What we've got coming up on today's episode is we'll be looking at tomatoes and how to grow them in grow bags. We'll be looking at jobs to do in June and also what to sow and grow in June. We'll be up on the decking potting up some herbs, and we'll also look at what there is to harvest in June. So I'm going to show you how to plant up some grow bags. So this one is a Tomerite giant tomato planter. It's charged with extra tomato food and it has extra seaweed extract in it. And I always find that these are some of the best grow bags available. This one has 3 slots on it, and actually we've moved these into the greenhouse for the last 2 weeks, so the soil gets really nice and warm. You don't have to grow them in grow bags, you can grow tomatoes in the soil as well, but because of space, they're a great space saver, and you can also grow them on things like balconies and patios really well. So what do we need to do this? So we need some scissors, we need a bit of string, we also need some plant pots. First of all, let's get our pots ready. So these are really good, these are 3 litre black pots, something which you would probably get supplied if you had just like a normal plant. There's a natural seam that runs around the bottom of the pot, and just using a pair of scissors you're going to need to cut along that edge. So get your scissors in and then naturally just start cutting around that seam. And what we're doing is we're creating a bottomless pot. Now you don't have to do this, but what it does is it just gives you a bit more root growth. I'll show you exactly what we use these for. There we go. So that isn't useless. You can use that as a bird scare actually. Just put loop a bit of string through it and hang it up. Good. So we've ended up with a bottomless pot. So ideally you want 3 of these. So these are 3 that I've done earlier, all different shapes and sizes. This particular grow bag has got 3 sections, so 3 pots. So those can go to one side, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to rough up the bag. All I mean by roughing it up is just by turning on this side, pushing it down, and that will just loosen up the soil and get it a bit more plumper. There you go. And now it's become a lot more rounded. If you do have a pen, that's ideal. If not, you can just use the rim of the pot. So get one of your pots and put it on top of the square or the segment that they've selected. You're just making a template. There we go. Perfect. Good. So again, put your pots to one side, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to cut around these circles using a pair of scissors. So follow the circle that you've drawn. Good. And then repeat that on the other 2. Once you've done the other 2, just put in some little cuts just on the 4 points of the circle, and what that does is, if the circle's slightly too small, it just means that your pot then can fit in. Perfect. So now that you've done that, what you want to do is you want to push your plant pots into the holes. Not too deep, because you want to make sure there's a nice height on it. And what we're trying to do is, by doing this, you'll give the plant more root growth, which will ultimately aid it in more fruit production. The more nutrients it can get in, the more fruit that you'll have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut some string. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be supporting my tomatoes from a supporting beam that's just above me. So I'm going to need a length of string that goes from the supporting beam and right down to the base of the tray, so all the way, making sure I've got enough room to tie. So this one's about just over 1 metre. I'm just going to cut 3 lengths of string. Measure as you go, and make sure you don't get too little or too much. That's it, and then tie it to the top. I just do a simple knot, just as long as it can hold quite a bit of weight. Good. And then the remaining bit of string, you bury that nice and deep. Make sure it's nice and taut. There we go. Perfect. So now you're ready to plant. Just excavate some of the soil from the bottom. just so that you make it even deeper, and just put that into a neighbouring pot. So when removing it from its pot, just do it really gently. It's got a really nice root system on that. Just pop it down, and what I want to do is just remove a couple of these lower leaves, because what I don't want to do is I don't want those to rot and cause anything like disease on the rest of the plant. Remove the label, and then this can then go into the pot. So place it gently into the pot as close to that string as you possibly can, and then with that soil that you moved before, just start to put it around the plant. And what you'll notice on tomato plants is the fine hairs that come off it, and what they're doing is they're trying to capture the moisture, so those will actually end up as your roots, and that's what gives the plant a bit more stability, but also feeds more nitrogen, more nutrients up to your crops. So make sure there's about an inch just from the soil to the top of the pot, so when you water, you're not the water's not going to just flow out over the sides, so it actually goes down to where it needs to go to. So once your tomato plant has been firmed in, with the string, what you want to do is gently just rotate the tomato plant around the string, and the tomato plant will use that as support to grow upwards. That's it, and just be gentle. There you go. So as you can see, a bit of tension, but it's also now really supported, so that will grow really nice and strong. So just make sure you also keep the label, so just puncture a hole in the bag and then put your label in, and then what you want to do is just repeat that across the other two. Good, now that all that's done, so we've got a watering can. It's nice warm water. It's been in the greenhouse for at least a couple of days now, so it's got to the right temperature, and what you're looking to do is just to fill each pot, and as you can see, by giving that little bit of a lip, the water doesn't just cascade over the side, it stays firmly within the pot, which means that it goes and soaks down into the root. So that's it, done. Now let's have a look at some other jobs that you can do in June. Citrus plants will now need feeding, so make sure that you give them a weekly water and a citrus feed. Tomato plants will need to be taken out and hardening off, ready for planting outside, and make sure that you remove any of the side shoots. Black aphids are typical at this time of year, so just remove the tips of your broad beans to reduce the numbers. Remove dahlia tips to lengthen the flowering season. If you have rust on leeks and garlics, you might want to think about harvesting them now. Soft fruit will need to be netted. It's a good time to top up bird feeders and water baths. Watch out for the red lily beetle. It's also good to make labels, because you might want to grow it again next year. Pot on chilies, peppers and aubergines. Plant out any established plants from last month. It's an important time to water and feed pots regularly. Do this on a weekly basis. If you've sown any annuals such as zinnias or cosmos, now's the perfect time to start planting these out. Also remember to sow and grow in June. herbs. I'm going to plant a few in some terracotta pots. What I'm looking to plant up today is some thyme, so this is known as silver posy. I also have purple sage and some common thyme. Oh, it smells lovely. Okay, so gonna need a pot. This one's terracotta. You can also use plastic, doesn't really matter. And like I said, you can reuse those bottoms of the pots that I cut off. So they're actually quite good as little crocks. What a crock does is it just stops the hole being blocked at the bottom. So we're just going to place one of those down the bottom, just so that when we pour water in it, it just drains all the way through, like so. Once we've got your crock in, like I said, oh, a bumblebee on this now. So that's on our common thyme, and I might leave him for a sec, so he can get what he needs. So anyway, we're going to look to do the silver posy then instead. Once you've got your plant and your pot with your crock in the bottom, we need compost. So you can see this has got really nice vermiculite and perlite mixed in with it, and it's a multi-purpose compost with John Innes. Just going to fill a little bit of the pot now. So nice and level with the pot, just with about maybe ½ an inch, just so when we put water in, the water doesn't spill out over the side. That's good. Just put that to one side. And what I'm going to say to you is to take the plant out of the pot nice and gently. So this one's got a good root system, it's quite strong, might need to just loosen off these slightly. And what this is doing is just reinvigorating the root growth. Okay, now just leave that to one side and just use the pot. So if you use the pot and then put the earth around, the plant doesn't get in the way. And what this does is it gives you a perfect shape for when you want to put your plant in. And just firm it down around the sides. It's nicely firmed in. Up around. And make sure you keep the label. There you go. So all we need now is a little bit of water. Now that that's done, let's see what we can harvest around the allotment. So here we have a colocasia. It's also known as black elephant ears. Fantastic foliage, absolutely loves the shade, but it absolutely hates the cold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this into the greenhouse. I'm going to look after it until about the second week into June, and I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to put it on the decking and leave it in the shade. It doesn't like direct sunlight, but like I said, it gives fantastic foliage. That's it for us today at Grow a Lot More. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully get to see you next month in July. If you'd like to, please subscribe, and for the followers, thank you very much. So let's get him in.